Okay, class. So this is the acid-base balance lecture. Yan, wait lang. Let me just go and see the other. Mhm.
Laptop? Ang bilis bilis. Miss C, present ma'am. Thank you. Kita ko lahat. Dati hindi.
Okay, so let me begin your the discussion. Can you see it now? Sorry, hindi ko kasi kayo kita.
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, okay.
Po.
Okay, good, good. Okay, so ayan. Uh-huh. Okay, so before I begin, so one thing that you should note about acid-base balance is that the blood pH is being controlled, and meron siyang homeostatic mechanisms just like yung fluids natin before. Now, when you talk about acid-base balance, the normal blood pH is 7.35 to 7.45. So, if you're familiar with the pH scale, the pH scale starts from 1 to 14. 1 being very, very acidic, and 14 being very alkalinic. Yan. So, yan. So, this is an example of your pH scale. So, yung mga nasa 1 to 2, that's the pH of your gastric acids, like your hydrochloric acid. Yan. So, 1 and 2 yan. And then you have the other side of the spectrum, your strong alkaline. So, kasama dyan yung mga panglinis, like bleach, So, yan yung mga matataas sa ating, or they are the alkalotic. Okay? So, this is your normal blood pH, as you can see here. So, 7.35 to 7.45. Sorry. So, technically, ang pinaka-normal, yung pinaka-gitna na blood pH is 7.4. As the blood pH decreases, it becomes acidic. So, halimbawa, naging 7.3, 7.2 yan. So, acidic na yon. And then it becomes alkalinic or alkalotic if it increases 7.45. Now, when it becomes acidic, ibig sabihin, tumataas yung hydrogen ions. Kasi remember in your chemistry, pag sinabi mong acids, lagi yon may hydrogen sa unahan, no? Like H2SO4. So that's your sulfuric acid. You have your do you still recall this? Yung mga gantong formula, HCl. That's your hydrochloric acid. Ayan. So, pagka may hydrogen sa unahan, usually, no, nilagiging acidic. So, syempre, except for water, because alam natin pag H2O lang, ayan, so hindi siya acid. Okay. So, this is the normal blood pH, meaning yung normal amount of hydrogens are found in the blood if it's 7.35 to 7.45. Pag nababawasan naman yung hydrogen sa dugo, the blood becomes alkalotic or alkaline in nature. So, it becomes greater than 7.45. Okay? So, pag sinabi mong acidosis, mataas yung hydrogen ions pero mababa ang pH. Pagka naman sinabi mong alkalinic or alkalosis or alkalotic or basic, yan, kasi base, di ba? That is, mataas ang pH pero mababa ang hydrogen ions. Ibig sabihin, nabawasan ka ng hydrogen ions, kaya siya naging alkaline. Ayan. So, I hope that this is clear because this will be the basis. Your blood pH will be the basis for Yeah, so it will be the basis for all of our discussions, no? Yan yung basis niyan. Okay. Wait lang guys, ha. Guys, wait lang. Sorry. Um, guys, wait lang ah. I'm so sorry. Wait lang, wait lang. Okay, so once again, let me go back to our lesson. Wait lang, guys. Percent. Okay, so as I was saying, so your normal blood pH is 7.35 to 7.45. Anything less than that becomes acidic. Anything greater than that becomes alkalutic or alkalinic. Okay, so there are homeostatic mechanism as I've told you sa katawan natin. Okay, so let's say for example, there is a change in the hydrogen ions. Kasi when you talk about pH, diba pH stands for the power of hydrogen. So any change in the power of hydrogen or any change of in the level of hydrogen for that matter kicks off the homeostatic mechanisms, which means that kailangan niyang i-balance again yung iyong blood pH. Now, the first line of defense or the first mechanism that kicks in is your buffer system. So, meron kang receptors in your blood that detects the loss of or the gain gain of your hydrogen ions or your blood pH. Now, once there is this the blood detects that there is an increase in hydrogen ions, so nadidetect niya, uy, dumami yung hydrogen ions, ibig sabihin, mas acidic yung blood. So, ang gagawin niya, it will release the hydrogen ions, let's say, in your kidneys. Okay? O kaya naman the hydrogen ions in your respiratory system. Yan. Kasi merong dalawang systems that helps in the homeostatic mechanisms of the body, which includes your lungs and your kidneys. Okay? Furthermore, your buffer system, kapag ka naman masyadong basic yung blood, like, the pH has increased, meaning masyadong basic, kailangan niya ngayon kailangan niya magdagdag ng hydrogen ions. Okay, so the buffer system of the blood works that way. Now, when we talk about the lungs, on the other hand, we know that the lungs is part of that homeostatic mechanism wherein if ang kailangan yung ma-memorize ito is that the carbon dioxide turns into carbonic acid once it combines with water. So, pag CO2, nagiging carbonic acid, HCO2, kapag ka ito ay nag-combine sa iyong H2CO2. So, nagiging carbonic acid siya. And what your lungs do to maintain your homeostatic mechanism is that it maintains the partial carbon dioxide levels of the blood sa 35 to 45. Yun yung minamaintain niya. Now, kapag tumaas yung iyong carbon dioxide in the blood or relatively tataas yung carbonic acid, so mas magiging acidic. So, greater than 45, it will become acidic. Less than 35, it will become alkalotic. So the lungs will now determine it by the partial carbon dioxide or the PCO2. So anong gagawin ng lungs mo? Kapag sobrang daming carbon dioxide sa katawan, nagiging acidic siya, ang gagawin ng lungs mo is ilalabas mo siya sa iyong, bibilis yung iyong breathing para mailabas ng lungs. So it's actually dictated by the medulla oblongata of the brain. Now, the medulla oblongata of the brain will dictate sa lungs mo na mag-breathe in ka deeper and faster kapag dumadami yung carbonic acid. Pag naman nakukulangan, i-dictate ng brain mo is that you have to breathe slower or shallower. Okay, so that's what the lungs do. And then as for your kidneys, so your kidneys, ayan, so they, medyo mabagal to, pero ang nire-regulate niya is the bicarbonates in the blood, HCO3. So the normal bicarbs is 22 to 26, pero just like any normal values, may varying degree, nagva-vary siya, depende sa iyong, what do you call this? It depends on your references. Okay, so depende sa reference nyo. So the normal bicarbs will be 22 to 26. So this is your normal values for your bicarbonate. Okay, So that's your buffer system. So you have the lungs and the kidneys that works as well. So blood, buffer system, then you have lungs and then kidneys. So ang work nila is to maintain the blood within normal range. So that is something that we call as compensation. So pag may naging abnormal, ang gagawin ng either of this will try to make it or to balance it out once again. Okay? So yan yung homeostatic mechanism ng katawan. Now, as we've said, merong mga pagkakataon that there will be imbalances. And there are four acid-base imbalances that we will encounter. The first one is known as your metabolic acidosis. Then you have metabolic alkalosis. Then you have respiratory alkalosis, then respiratory acidosis. So pag sinabi mong metabolic, usually we're talking here about the kidneys. Sila, yung kidney mo ang responsible for the buffering. Pag respiratory, it's the lungs that is responsible for the buffering. Okay, let's look at them one by one, starting with metabolic acidosis. So from what you can see in this picture, it has something to do with the loss, kaya, with diarrhea. So metabolic acidosis happens when, so let's look at this. So it's a build up. So it happens when there is excessive acid in the blood, and this buildup may be due to the following. So it's either increased acid production, loss of bicarbs, or reduced kidney function. So remember, pwedeng posible magkaroon ka increased acid production when there is a tumor in your hydrochloric or rather in your stomach that causes this production of hydrochloric, excessive production of hydrochloric acid. It could be the loss of bicarbonates when a patient has diarrhea, or it could be reduced kidney function wherein hindi lumalabas yung mga waste products, which includes acids, no? Yeah, like uric acid was supposed to be lumalabas sa katawan pero hindi lumalabas just because there is a problem with the kidneys. Okay, so what are the causes of metabolic acidosis? You have the following. So you have diarrhea. Diarrhea, so both bowel and bladder losses. Diarrhea in the use of diuretics can cause metabolic acidosis. Actually, overuse of diuretics. So diarrhea kasi nawawala ang bicarbonates kapag ka excessive ang iyong bowel movement. And ganun din po ang diuretics. You if you use a lot of diuretics, so there is a possibility that the patient will have or overuse of diuretics, so mawawala rin yung bicarbs, then it can lead to metabolic acidosis. Salicylate poisoning. So salicylate poisoning has something to do with the use of with the excessive use or overdose of your aspirin. So kung naalala natin ang aspirin, ang kanyang chemical name is salicylic acid. So salicylate poisoning, so dumadami yung acid. So any acidic poisoning can lead to your metabolic acidosis. Uremia, this happens, so merong buildup of uric acid in the blood can lead to your metabolic acidosis. And you have your diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a complication of your type 1 diabetes mellitus. So kung may DM siya, type 1, tapos hindi niya na-control yung kanyang glucose levels, so there's a tendency for uncontrolled diabetes or halimbawa starvation. Remember, kapag di ka kumakain, the body works in such a way that it will cause the fats to be digested. Kapag fats yung nadadigest, ketones are being built up, and ketone digestion can lead to the accumulation of ketones in the blood, which is known as your ketoacidosis. Kasi it causes the blood to become acidic. Okay, so yun yung ginagawa ng mga ketone bodies. So that's DKA or diabetic ketoacidosis. What about the manifestations of metab acid? So you have the following: headache, confusion, tachypnea, signs of shock, and weakness. So the signs of shock can be associated with yung mga signs and symptoms of dehydration. Kasi nga, nag-overuse ka ng diuretics, tapos pag meron kang diabetic ketoacidosis, ang tendency din lang, marami kang i-urinate. Kasi yung urine it contains glucose and ketones. Meron kang ketonuria at saka glycosuria. So the more solutes found in the urine, the more urine will be moved out of the system. That's why you have to beware of signs and symptoms of shock. So pag shock natin, alam natin what happens to the blood pressure, it decreases. So hypotension, pagka sa yung RR, tachypnea, pag iyong cardiac rate is tachycardia. So hypotachy-tachy. And then it will lead to weakness. Ayan. So these are, syempre meron ka ring signs and symptoms of dehydration. Okay, so what will be your intervention for metabolic acidosis? So, syempre, kailangan i-counteract natin. Syempre, lahat naman to, treat the underlying cause. Pero, how do you ano ba yung mga possible treatment that is found on the books? So, you have bicarbonates can be given kasi nga may loss of bicarbonates through the GI tract. Then you have insulin can also be given to the patient. Ayan. And then you have your fluid replacements. Ayan. So, syempre, sabi natin, insulin, syempre, di ba kung DKA ang cause, diabetic ketoacidosis, so yung ketone bodies and then yung glucose levels mo mataas, so the insulin is there so that there is makuha ng cells yung glucose, no? Ma-use up yung glucose and to reverse the diabetic ketoacidosis. For fluid replacement, so syempre meron kang signs and symptoms of shock, so you need to replace the fluid to somehow correct the acidosis that is happening. Okay, so these are your treatment for metabolic acidosis. So the next acid-base imbalance will be your metabolic alkalosis. So ano naman nangyayari dito? So remember kanina, acidosis happens when bicarbs is lost. So metabolic alkalosis happens naman when hydrochloric acid is lost. Just like in vomiting. So ito, nag-vomit siya. So elevation of pH in the body due to either increased bicarbonate concentrations and loss of hydrochloric acid. So what are the causes of metabolic alkalosis? You have the following: vomiting, as I've said, kasi pag sumuka ka, lumalabas hindi lang fluid kasama hydrochloric acid. So pag nawala yung hydrochloric acid, magiging imbalance, so metabolic alkalosis na. GI suctioning, syempre pag nag-suction ka, nasasama mo yung ibang acid, so that is where you will have metabolic alka. Excessive use of antacid, so masyadong na-neutralize yung acidity ng pH ng hydrochloric acid, so it leads to metabolic alka. Ingestion of bicarbs. So, halimbawa, meron siyang metab acid, tinreat mo siya with sodium bicarbonate. So, nag-lead naman siya sa metabolic alkalosis. So, remember, balance kasi yan. So, kapag ka nasobrahan yung treatment mo sa isa, mag-lead yan dun sa kabilang imbalance. No? Then, you have hypokalemia. So, when you vomit, ayan, so, there and also if a patient has hypokalemia per se, it can lead to your metabolic alkalosis. Ayan. So the next one, ayan, so what are the manifestations of a patient with metabolic alkalosis? So you have the signs and symptoms of hypokalemia and also the signs and symptoms of excessive, no? So meron kang ginagawa kapag ang pasyente mo may metabolic alkalosis, the respiration becomes shallow. So kung kanina yung diabetic ketoacidosis, yung metabolic acidosis natin, ang ginagawa niya is deeper, faster breathing. Ngayon naman, halos hindi ka humihinga. Shallow respirations that leads to apnea. Then because of the shallow respiration, it can lead to cyanosis. Bakit, ma'am? Kasi remember, may compensatory mechanism, yung buffer system plus ngayon yung lungs. Yung bicarbonates kasi yung kidneys mo, medyo mabagal siyang mag-compensate. So, ang gagawin, ang mas immediate na nakikita sa pasyente is the compensation of the respiratory system. So, anong gagawin niya? Dahil nawawala yung acid sa metabolism, sa GI tract natin, sa blood natin. So, ang gagawin niya, i-conserve niya yung carbon dioxide na nasa respiratory system. Kaya ang nangyayari, halos hindi ka humihinga. Shallow respiration hanggang nag-lead pa siya sa apnea para lang nandun lang yung carbon dioxide, no? Para hindi siya lumabas. Yung kanina naman, yung metabolic acidosis, nakita mo ang nangyari sa respiration niya, bumilis, tas malalim yung paghinga. Kasi kanina, nilalabas naman niya yung carbon dioxide. So ngayon, ayaw niyang ilabas, kasi alkalosis ka. Para magkaroon siya ng compensation, yung respiratory system. So you also have their nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and some form of muscle twitching. What will be the treatment for metabolic alkalosis? Now, as we've said, ang possible namang causes niya is your vomiting, GI suctioning, excessive antacid. So, you treat the underlying cause to be able to reverse the metabolic alkalosis. Kasi hindi ka naman pwede mag-infuse ng hydrochloric acid sa pasyente mo. So, what you can do instead is to limit the bicarbonates, pwede rin naman acidify the urine by increasing your vitamin C rich foods, pero still it is the reversal of your underlying causes. Okay, so that's metabolic alkalosis. The next disorder is your respiratory acidosis. Okay, now what happens here? So for respiratory acidosis, yan. Can you still hear me? Are you there?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Yes po.
Okay. So, for respiratory acidosis, so ano naman problema dito? Nangyayari po ang respiratory acidosis kapag ang pasyente mo nagre-retain ng masyadong maraming carbon dioxide, like hindi niya yun nailalabas. So, yun yung respiratory acidosis. So, the accumulation of carbon dioxide in the blood causing a decrease in blood pH. Remember, pag acidic, mababa ang blood pH. Kapag ka-alkalotic, mataas ang blood pH. Okay. So, yes. Wait lang sorry. Okay na. Okay. So, let me continue. So, example is, so anong example ng mga sakit nagre-retain ka ng carbon dioxide sa dugo mo? Example of that are your COPD, like your bronchitis, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, your bronchiectasis. For sure, you've discussed this in the respiratory system, no? Ng inyong, yung previous discussion. Now, makikita niyo yung mga metabolic acid, metabolic alka, respi acid, respi alka. Makikita niyo po yan sa iba't ibang mga sakit. Okay? So, yan. Let's continue. Okay. So, what are the causes of your respiratory acidosis na banggit natin? So, you have emphysema. So, emphysema happens when there is accumulation of the carbon dioxide in the blood kasi may problema yung iyong alveoli. So, the alveoli is not deflating properly. So, merong na iiwan na mga carbon dioxide doon sa iyong alveoli, thus increasing the carbon dioxide levels in the blood, thus causing respiratory acidosis, and also the signs and symptoms of your emphysema. Remember, pag merong emphysema ang pasyente, ang nangyayari sa kanya is yung pink puffer. Yan, sabi na, pink puffers. Yung naka-pursed lip breathing, yung mga patient, tapos pinkish yung skin nila. Tapos pag breathe sila, mas mahaba yung kanilang exhalation kaysa sa kanilang inhalation. Kasi normally, kapag normal yung lungs mo, pag nag-inhale ka, inhale, exhale. Yun yung normal. Pero, kapag ka ikaw ay may respiratory, pag ikaw may emphysema, the exhalation is about like 3 times longer, yung iba 4 times longer than the inhalation. So, pag inhale mo, let's say for example, inhale, exhale mo, yan, matagal. Kasi nga masikip yung kanyang yung sa alveoli hindi siya properly inflate deflate. That's the reason why tumatagal yung expiration. Okay, yung pag-exhale ng iyong patient hanggang sa point na matrap na yung mga carbon dioxide doon sa yung alveoli. Eventually you will have your emphysema. So another is airway obstruction. Syempre kapag hindi ka nakaka-breathe in ng oxygenated blood, hindi ka rin maka-exhale, no? So yung carbon dioxide natatrap lang, so dumadami yan sa blood. COPD, so nabanggit ko na kanina, so chronic bronchitis, you have emphysema, you have your bronchiectasia or bronchiectasis, those are your COPD cases. Then you have asthma. So syempre pag may asthma yung patient natin, alam natin, that there is a constriction of your bronchi, and the constriction of that bronchi or the respiratory tract leads to the wheezing, no? So it's a hypersensitivity disorder that can be triggered by anything like any allergens. So yun ang respi acid. Okay. So the manifestations of respiratory acidosis include the following: of headache, weakness, dyspnea, so difficulty of breathing, cyanosis, at saka actually pinkish skin can also happen. So cyanosis, syempre pag may airway obstruction, nakikita mo yan, no? Nagsacyanotic yung pasyente. Tachycardia, and then diaphoresis. These are signs and symptoms of respiratory acidosis. Okay? And then, yan, the treatment will be as follows. So pag tinignan mo yung treatment, parang treatment siya sa mga respiratory condition. Siyempre, pag airway obstruction, kailangan mo ng Heimlich maneuver kung total obstruction yan. Yan. So, kung any other airway obstruction, so kailangan i-treat yan kasi medical emergency. Pero kapag mga COPD, asthma, so usually ito yung mga treatment to reverse the acidosis. So, have deep breathing exercises, suctioning the airway. Okay? So, kasi baka ang reason kung bakit hindi siya maka-breathe in, breathe out appropriately kasi ang daming mucus doon sa kanyang airway. So, dahil doon, hindi maka breathe in, breathe out, especially yung exhalation, kaya nagkakaroon ng carbon dioxide accumulation. Chest physiotherapy includes 3 steps. Pag chest physiotherapy, you have your postural drainage, you have your remember your bronchial tapping, and then your vibrations. So all of that is included in your chest physiotherapy. For sure, you've discussed that already. Then you have oxygenation as ordered, and of course, bronchodilators as prescribed. Now, syempre kung asthma yan, so malamang meron yung mga antihistamines, corticosteroids, cromolyn sodium, yung mga gano'n, no? So, mga may maintenance medications ang mga pasyente natin na mga asthmatic. So, that's respiratory acidosis. Okay. The next one is known as your respiratory alkalosis. Now, I think of the 3, so meron naman siyang accompanying disorders. Pero of the 4, I think respi-alka is one of the things that you could easily spot. So this is seen in patients who are hyperventilating. Yung nauubusan naman sila ng carbon dioxide. Kasi 'di ba kapag ka nagha-hyperventilate ka, parang ganon. So, lumalabas masyadong madaming carbon dioxide. So, yung blood pH mo tumataas. Therefore, you have the following signs and symptoms. So, ano yung causes muna ng respi-alka? Hyperventilation, that's one. Kasi nga sabi natin, lumalabas yung masyadong maraming carbon dioxide kasi ang bilis-bilis mong maghuminga. So, hyperventilation. So, lahat ng mga conditions that can lead to hyperventilation can lead to respiratory alkalosis tulad ng anxiety or panic attacks. Yan. So, alam mo naman, nakakakita ka na sa mga movies na may mga panic attacks. For example, si Iron Man, 'di ba? Si Tony Stark nung naalala niya yung attack nung aliens. Parang 3 yun yata, Iron Man 3, if I'm not mistaken. Nagkakaroon siya ng panic attacks. Diba? So, ano nangyayari pag may panic attacks ka? So, bumibilis yung breathing mo, nawawala yung carbon dioxide, or you're losing the carbon dioxide, thus losing carbonic acid, thus respiratory alkalosis. And also, kapag ka-decrease yung oxygen levels in the air that you're breathing in. So, technically, kapag decrease yung O2, tumataas yung carbon dioxide. Like if, for example, you have like hypoxia when you are in higher altitudes. So, that could lead to respiratory alkalosis. Okay, so ano ba nangyayari kapag may respiratory alkalosis sa patient? So, you will find here the signs and symptoms of what happens when a patient has stage fright. So let's say, for example, you're, I think you're the class that I told you this about, for example, yung meron ka stage fright. Yun. So this is what happens when you have that, no? Mag-hyperventilate ka. So you have circumoral paresthesia. Ibig sabihin, yung palibot ng iyong bibig, parang walang feelings, no? Parang wala siyang sensation, or parang may tingling sensation sa palibot ng bibig. It's a sign of respi-alka. Apprehension, okay? You have your tachypnea. So, kasi nga yun yung rest by alka, no? Nag-hyperventilate siya. Tetany, okay? So, and it can even lead to unconsciousness. So, pwede ka pong mahimatay kapag ikaw ay nag-hyperventilate kasi syempre anxiety, panic attacks, and all that. Okay, so tetany, so pwede rin magkaroon ng muscle spasm o kaya 'di ba yung remember I told you about the competition that I joined. Tapos what happened there was yung hands ko hindi ko siya ang tawag dito, maibuka. Yan. So, that can also happen kasi respiratory alkalosis yung nangyari. So, what will be the treatment? So, nakakatawa yung treatment natin ng paper bag. Okay. As you can see, si Sheldon, ayan, dyan sa picture na yan, ayan, Big Bang Theory. So, you will see na gumagamit siya ng paper bag. Bakit mamparasan yung paper bag? So, the paper bag will trap the carbon dioxide na nawawala and bring it back sa'yo. Kasi ang problema mo nga dito, that's the loss of carbon dioxide. So, para maibalik dun sa pasyente yung nag-hyperventilate yung CO2 na nawawala, paper bag. So, syempre kung wala kang paper bag, pwede mong gamitin yung hands ng patient. So, sabi mo sa patient, ma'am, can you cup your hands around your mouth? Tas kalma lang. Yan. So you have relaxation techniques and then you have anxiolytics as ordered kung halimbawang relaxation techniques won't work. Pero kasi once, let's say for example, alam mo yun, yung parang mga nag-hysterical, umiiyak, ganun, bigla na lang nagkakaroon ng respiratory alkalosis. Kaya yung iba pag sobrang iyak, di ba, biglang nahimatay, ganyan. Pero yung pala, respiratory alkalosis lang pala yun. So kailangan mo lang pakalmahin yung pasyente mo, then pag na-normalize na yung breathing niya, hindi na siya nag-hyperventilate, manonormalize na rin yung level of carbon dioxide sa kanyang katawan. And kapag eto naman, it's possible also that the respiratory alkalosis happens because of the compensation for metabolic acidosis. Remember earlier on, nabanggit natin yung diabetic ketoacidosis or DKA. Yan. Let me use my trusty pen. Okay. Now, as we've said, DKA or diabetic ketoacidosis is a complication of your type 1 DM. Complication siya. So, si DKA, yan, diabetic ketoacidosis, dumami masyado yung ketones in the blood. So, dahil dumami yung ketones in the blood, what happens is it leads to your acidosis. So, because this is metabolic in nature, so, yan, meron kang metabolic acidosis. So, as a compensatory mechanism of the body, it wants to release this acidosis. Gusto tanggalin yung excessive acid in the blood. So, ang gagawin niya, ang compensation niya is to increase your RR, and it becomes deeper also. Increase na siya, tapos deep pa. Increase the rate and depth of respiration. So, parang kang pinagha-hyperventilate ngayon ng iyong DKA. So, from metabolic acidosis, nagko-compensate siya by removing your excessive carbon dioxide. So, pag umingkrease yung RR at lumalim yung breathing mo, it now removes your CO2. Yan. So, eto nga yung increased RR and deeper breaths is called Cosmos respiration. Yan ang tawag dyan. Cosmos respiration. Also known as your Cosmos breathing. So, pag Cosmos breathing, faster, deeper breaths. So, kung normal breath natin per minute is 16 to 20, so ito, greater than 20 breaths per minute, tapos malalim pa, deep breaths. So, ang tawag dyan, Cosmos respiration. So, para kang nag-hyperventilate. Pero actually, it's a compensation for the respiratory alkalosis. For the metabolic acidosis. Yan. Okay. So, okay. Now, paano ba malalaman natin kung acidosis or alkalosis ang pasyente? So, you need to have your arterial blood gas checked, no? So, as you can see there, yung sa picture natin, this is how you get arterial blood gas. So, as you know, kapag nagdodraw tayo ng dugo, we usually draw blood from the veins, 'di ba? Sa veins ka kukuha kasi doon less pressure, 'di ba? Ang veins. Kaya venipuncture ang tawag sa pagkuha ng dugo. Pero para malaman mo yung ABG or arterial blood gases, kailangan sa arteries ka kukuha. And we usually use the radial artery for the diagnostic test. So kukuha ng blood sample sa radial artery. So syempre alam mo that the radial artery is actually the one that supplies blood to the hand. So the first thing that you should do before this is something that you should know. So syempre alam mo naman nagdo-draw ng blood usually medtech na, no? Pero kailangan lang alam mo that before ABG is drawn, mag-a-Allen's test muna ang pasyente. Allen's test. Now, this is a test for the ulnar artery. So, it tests if the ulnar artery can actually support oxygenating the hand as you take the blood from the radial artery. So, yan yung Allen's test, no? So, kasi syempre, alam mo na gagamitin mo yung radial artery. So, check mo, kaya ba ng ulnar artery isupply yung blood for my hand na hindi mako-compromise yung circulation kahit na gagamitin ko yung radial artery for a while to draw blood. Okay. So, ano yung mga kinukuha in the arterial blood gas? So, you have the following. So, syempre, pH. Now, sabi natin, pH, normal value, 7.35 to 7.45. So, PCO2 is also gathered, so partial carbon dioxide, normal values, 35 to 45. And then PHCO3 or bicarbonate, normal values is 22 to 26. Now, this is something that you have to memorize. Okay. Another thing that you have to memorize is, of course, yung imbalance. Pag tumataas or bumababa. Okay, so pag bumababa at pag tumataas yung iyong ABG. So if it's less than 7.35 ang blood pH, it is acidic. Okay? Para maalala mo to, yung pH ng hydrochloric acid is 2. 1 to 2 ang hydrochloric acid. So ibig sabihin, acidic kapag mababa ang pH. Kapag syempre opposite is true. So pag mataas ang blood pH, greater than 7.45, it becomes alkalotic or alkalinic or basic. Yan. PCO2, di ba ito yung carbon dioxide, ito yung nagiging carbonic acid. So kapag bumababa siya, alkalotic. Pag tumataas siya, acidic. Yan. Kasi carbonic acid nga, nagiging carbonic acid. So pag dumadami ang carbon dioxide, acidic. Pag bumababa, alkalotic. Pag bicarbonates naman po, syempre from, bicarbs. So, ito po yung iyong mga sabon. Ayan. So, example, baking soda. So, this is now alkaline in nature. Okay. Pag bumababa, acidic. Pag tumataas, alkalotic. Okay. So, these are your normal values. Now, paano ngayon tayo nag-i-interpret ng ABG result? Okay. So, yun ang magiging part of your test, So, sa board exam, sa exams nyo sa akin, so meron kayong, may bibigay ako sa yung value, so i-interpret mo siya. Okay. So, this is how you interpret. So, let me give you the steps. If it's the PCO2 that causes the change in the pH, it becomes respiratory. If it's the bicarbonate that causes the change in the blood pH, it becomes metabolic in nature. So, mas maganda siyang matutunan kapag meron na tayong abnormality. Okay, let's look at that. So, this is an example of your ABG interpretation. Now, paano ba tayo step by step? The first thing that you have to ask yourself is to look at the pH. Ano ba siya? Acid, alka, normal, ano ba siya? So this is your first thing that you should do. So looking at the pH, alam ko sa isip ko, ang normal blood pH ay 7.35 to 7.45. So pag 7.48 siya, ibig sabihin mataas siya. And an increase in blood pH, alam natin, alkalosis. So dahil alkalosis siya, the first thing that I need to do is to write down alkalosis. Kasi kahit ano pong mangyari, it is alkalosis. Kasi nga, ang tinitingnan mo, blood pH. And it's the one that dictates if it's acidic, alkalotic, or whatever. Next is your 35, the PCO2. Alam mo ang normal so the next thing, second question that you have to ask yourself, what caused the change in pH? Yan ang next mong tanong. Anong nag-cause? Pagka PCO2, sabi natin, respiratory yan. Kapag ka PHCO3, bicarb, metabolic yan. Metab. Okay. So, ang first mong i-determine, ano ba to? Acidosis or alkalosis. Okay? The next thing is anong dahilan. Okay. So, tingnan natin. PCO2 is 35. Ang normal values natin from our memory, 35 to 45. Okay. So, 35 is normal. This is 35 to 45, no? PHCO3. Ano ang normal values ng PHCO3? Sabi natin, 22 to 26. 28 siya. Ibig sabihin, mataas. At alam natin, pag tumataas ang bicarbonate, it becomes alkalotic or alkalosis. So, your next question, sabi natin, after looking at the pH, alkalosis, what caused the alkalosis? Siyempre, yung kapareho niya na nagsabi ng alkalosis din, ayun no, which is bicarbonate. So, ibig sabihin, ang sagot mo dito, metabolic alkalosis. Okay. So, the third question. So, alam mo na, metabolic alkalosis. Kaso, in terms of interpretation, meron pa tayong isang kino-consider. So, the next question that you have to ask yourself is it compensated? Okay? And then, so tama tayo, no? Metabolic alkalosis. So the next question you have to ask yourself is it compensated? Ano ibig sabihin nun? Remember, sabi natin, your lungs, okay, and your kidneys try to compensate or balance off your blood pH. So ibig sabihin, kung may abnormality caused by one value, titingnan mo ngayon the other value. Nag-try ba siya mag-compensate? Pag sinabi mong nag-try mag-compensate, kung alkaline yung abnormality, dapat ito naging acidic. Sana. Okay? Kung nag-compensate siya. Pero dahil hindi siya naging acidic kasi normal siya, your answer is it is uncompensated. Okay? So when you interpret this ABG, you will say it's uncompensated metabolic alkalosis. So for some reason, sorry, for some reason, hindi nag-compensate ang katawan. So dapat naging acidic pero hindi. Okay? So that's metabolic alkalosis uncompensated or uncompensated metabolic alkalosis. Let's have another. Okay, another one. So the pH here is 7.33. So again, balik tayo. 7.35 to 7.45. Ay! No! Yan. 7.45. So, 7.33, mababa siya. Mababa. Therefore, acid. Yan. So, yung una ko ilalagay dito, acidosis. Kasi sure na ako acidosis siya. Next, tingnan ko yung dalawang values na kung ano nag-cause ng acidity. Ang aking PCO2 ay 46. Ang normal niya, 35 to 45. So, mataas siya. Acid siya. Kasi carbonic acid, no, carbon dioxide. Next is normal values of PHCO3, 22 to 26. 30 siya. Tumaas siya. Alkaline. Diba? Alkalosis siya. Kasi bakit? Ang PHCO3 po, bicarbonate, pag tumataas, nagiging alkaline ang blood. Ngayon, so acidosis siya. Ang problema mo kasi yung blood mo ay acidosis. Ang tanong mo, what caused the change? Anong nag-cause ng acidity? So, syempre, yung kapareho niya, yung acid din. PCO2. So, kung PCO2 ang nag-cause, ang sagot dyan, respiratory acidosis. So, based doon sa ating notes, ayan talaga, respiratory acidosis. So, after looking at that, tingnan mo naman yung isang value. So, the next value, siya ba ay nag-compensate? So, kung acid ka, dapat magiging alka siya kasi yun yung compensation, babalance niya eh. So, nag-compensate ba? So, your answer is yes. So, ang sagot mo, compensated. Now, kapag ka nang sagot mo ay yes, the next question is it enough? Okay. So, pag sinabi mo compensated siya, nag-compensate ma'am kasi acidic siya, naging alkalinic yung isa. So, dalawang acidic, isang alkalinic. So, ibig sabihin, nag-try mag-compensate. So, the compensated just by acid. But the next question you have to ask yourself is it enough to make the pH within normal range? So, ang tanong mo, normal range ba ang pH? Hindi, kasi 7.33 siya. Dapat within 7.35 to 7.45. Pero hindi. So, ang tawag doon, partially compensated. So, ibig sabihin, nag-compensate siya, pero hindi enough. So, ang tawag doon, partially compensated. Let's have another example. Okay, nasa na ba yun? Whiteboard. Screen, white screen. Okay, so let's have another example. Okay. So let's say you have your pH here. Ito yung ABG interpretation niya. pH 7 point. Kayo lang gagawa nito ah. Sabihin niyo sa akin kung anong sagot niyo. 7.30 PCO2 is, let's say it's 38. PHCO3 is, let's say, 20. What is happening here?
Metabolic acid.
Yes? Sino nagsagot? What about compensation?
Uncompensated.
So let's
Metabolic
see.
acidosis.
So pH is uncompensated. Sige, tingnan natin. pH is 7.3. So alam mo mababa yun, meaning acid. So lagay mo agad acidosis. So if you have written acidosis, then you're right already. PCO2 35 to 45, so it's normal. PHCO3 is 22, mababa siya, meaning acid. So what caused the acidity? Yung kapareho niya. So PHCO3 meaning metabolic acidosis. You look at the other one, other value, nag-compensate ba? Ang sagot hindi. So it's uncompensated metab acid. Correct? So yan po yung tamang sagot. Okay, let's have another one. Oh, let's go back to that. Okay, let's have another screen. Okay, what about this one? Okay. So the pH is 7.44. PCO2 is, let's say, 33. PHCO3 is, let's say, 20. What do you think is the problem here? What's wrong with the pH?
Normal.
Okay. So if you look at the pH here, yan, nasa normal level siya, no? So, normal levels. Kasi 7.35 to 7.45. Kung normal din yung PCO2 at PHCO3 levels, no? Syempre, ang sagot mo, normal. Okay. Pero pag tinignan mo yung 33 and 20 na PCO2, PCO3, hindi sila normal. So, ibig sabihin, merong hindi normal sa pH. Kasi ang normal blood pH natin, 7.35 to 7.45, pero yung pinaka-normal is 7.4. Okay? So, kapag ka more than that, more than 7.4, it's possible that it is alkalinic in nature earlier on. Okay? And kapag less than that, it's acidic in nature. No? So, normal siya, pero alka siya malamang kanina. Okay? Kasi much leaning towards, it's greater than 7.4. So, technically, mas mataas siya sa 7.4. So, alka. Ilalagay natin normal range pero alkalinic, leaning towards alkalinic. So next is 33, mababa siya. Normal kasi is 35 to 45. So pag bumababa ang iyong carbon dioxide, it becomes alkaline. Okay? PHCO3, 20, 22 to 26 ang normal. Alam natin yan. So, bumababa siya again. So, pag bumaba ang bicarbs, nagiging acidic ang dugo. So, the next thing that you would do is to look anong nag-cause kung meron man ng alkalinity ng pH ko. So, alka-alka. So, it will be respi. So, ang sagot mo dito, respiratory alkalosis. Now, the next question to ask yourself, meron bang compensation na naganap? Yes, kasi naging acidic. So, it's compensated. Now, the next question is it enough to make the pH within normal range? So, nag-compensate pero nag-normalize bang pH? Your answer is again, yes. Kasi ngayon, normal range na yung pH. So, ang tawag dyan ay fully compensated respiratory alkalosis. Fully compensated respiratory alkalosis. Did you get it?
Ma'am, pwede question po.
Go.
Ma'am, kasi di ba po na-determine natin na respiratory siya? Paano po natin malalaman kung acidosis or alkalosis? Pag
Ito,
alka-alka.
pH, guys. It's always the pH. Diba yun yung first step? Ang una mong malalaman, acid or alka, with the with the pH. That's always your first step. Malalaman mo agad kung acidosis or alkalosis with the pH. Kasi blood pH ito eh. Blood pH levels. Yan ang nagdedetermine ng acidity or alkalinity. So let's say for example, let me give you another. What if the pH is, let's say, 7.5? PCO2 is, let's say, 20. 30. PHCO3 is, let's say, 26.
Respiratory acidosis.
Are you sure?
Alkalosis?
Alkalosis.
So it's always the
Alkalosis
pH
po.
that determines the alkalinity or acidity. It's always the pH. Remember, go at it step by step. So ako gagawin ko pH 7.5. So mataas siya. Kasi ang normal 7.35 to 7.45. So pag tumataas ang pH, alka. So ang gagawin ko agad, susulat ko dito, alkalosis. Kasi yun ang sagot. Kasi kahit anong mangyari, it will be alkalosis. Kasi yan ang blood pH mo. No? So, yun yung nagdedetermine. So, ang nagdedetermine lang kung anong nag-cause, respi or metab, is saka mo lang i-check, PCO2 ba o PCO3. So, check ko ulit. 30, normal 35 to 45, mababa. Pag carbonic acid bumababa, alka. Okay? PHCO3, 26. Normal. 22 to 26 ang ano. So, ano nag-cause ng alkaline? Ibig sabihin, alin din yung alkaline? PCO2 ba o PHCO3? Eh di PCO2. So, kung PCO2 ang nag-cause, it's respiratory alkalosis. Next, look at the other value. May compensation o wala?
Meron po. Ay, normal pala, sorry. Remove
Wala.
ba?
Compensate.
Okay. So it's uncompensated respiratory alkalosis. Okay? So ganun lang siya. So let me give you another for you to answer on your own. Okay, widescreen. Okay. pH pH 7.36. PCO2 is 33. PHCO3 is 21.
Um, ano, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Metabolic.
Compensated respiratory acidosis.
Sige, kunin natin mga sagot nyo ah. Okay, so what's your answer again, Michelle?
Compensated respiratory
Anong
acidosis po.
compensation? Partial or fully?
Fully po, kasi nag-21 yung PCO3.
Fully compensated ano?
Compensated respiratory acidosis.
So sabi ni Michelle, respi acid. So ito daw sagot niya. Fully compensated respi acid. Sino may ibang sagot?
Ma'am,
Ano po?
metabolic acidosis pero
Metabolic
partially
po.
compensated.
Sorry. Again, metab,
Metabolic
acid,
acidosis po.
tapos,
Fully
tapos,
compensated.
fully compensated.
Partially. Okay po, ma'am.
Okay, so
Partially
meron
po.
ding partially compensated metab acid. Yan. So iba-iba ng sagot ah. Tingnan natin kung sino tama. Sino pang may iba pang sagot? Sino nagsasabing mali silang lahat? Eto pa, may iba akong sagot. Ayan. So at first nakakalito siya. So I pero pag eventually pag na-master mo na, isang tingin mo pa lang alam mo na. Pero sa ngayon, I implore you to do the step by step. First, check the pH. Next, check what caused it. Third, check if there is compensation. Fourth is that enough? Is the compensation enough? Okay, so let's look at the blood pH now. So let's go at it step by step, longer process, pero para ma-sure mo na tama ka. So 7.36 to 7 is within the normal range. So normal. Kung normal yung PCO2 at PHCO3, normal lang sagot mo. Normal lang isasagot mo. Pero dahil abnormal siya kasi 35 to 45 ang normal mababa siya, 22 to 26 ang normal mababa rin siya. So hindi sila pare-parehong normal, so ang option mo hindi normal. So titingnan mo siya with regards to 7.4. Mas mababa siya, so bumababa ang pH, acid. So, lagay mo na agad acidosis. Kung may option na alkalosis, remove na sa option. Next, look at the other values. PCO2 is 33, mababa yon, so it is alka. Kasi pag tumataas, acidic, pag bumaba, alkalinic. PHCO3, bicarbonate, mababa, meaning acid. So the next question you have to ask yourself, what caused the acidity of the pH? E di syempre, yung acid din. So PHCO3. So this is metabolic acidosis. So the next question you have to ask yourself is, may ginawa ba yung isang value? So your answer is yes, kasi naging alkaline siya. So binalance niya. So ang tawag dyan, compensated. So the next question you have to ask yourself is the compensation enough to make the pH within normal range? Yes, kasi nga normal range siya. So it's fully uncompensated metabolic acidosis. Chanan! Do you get it? Gets na ba?
Yes po.
Yes po.
Ma'am.
Okay. Try pa tayo isa pa ha. Okay, try pa tayo isa pa. Tun, 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 tun. Screen. Okay. PCO2, PHCO3.
Uncompensated respiratory alkalosis po.
So sabi niya, uncompensated respiratory alkalosis. Any more answer?
Wala na po, ma'am.
Did you all answer this?
Yes po.
Yes po.
So tingnan natin.
Yes po.
Okay, 7.35 to 7.45 is your normal. Mataas siya, so you know it's alkaline in nature. 33 is mababa. It means alkaline in nature kasi 35 to 45 normal. 25 is normal. So alka-alka, so you have respi alkalosis kasi PCO2 ang nag-cause ng change in pH, and it is uncompensated because wala siyang ginawa to try to compensate. So, yay! That's your correct answer. What about this one? pH, PCO2, PHCO3. 7.49. Oh, same. 48 and 28.
Uncompensated metabolic alkalosis po.
Okay, let's see. 7 mataas ulit siya. So, it's alka. So, lagay mo agad, alkalosis. 48, mataas, 35 to 45 normal. So, it is acid. 28, mataas, 22 to 26 normal. It is alka. Right? So, pag check mo siya, what caused the blood pH to change? It is this one. So, it is metabolic alkalosis. Now, look at the other value. Did it try to compensate? Yes or no?
Yes po.
Yes. So, it's compensated. But is it enough to make it normal? Is it
No
enough?
po.
No.
No,
So, it's
No
supposed
po.
to be
partially.
partially compensated. Correct. Dapat partially compensated. Yan. Nawala yung white screen ko. Okay? It's supposed to be partially compensated. Okay, let's have another. So, kahit medyo malapit, mukhang malapit, no? Any change in one can change your answer. Okay, let's have another. pH is 7.32. PCO2 is, let's say, 32. PHCO3 is, let's say, 20.
Respiratory
Acidosis.
acidosis po.
Metabolic acidosis po.
Metabolic acidosis po.
Same pa metabolic acidosis.
What about compensation?
Partially compensated po.
Partially compensated
Partially
po.
compensated.
Okay, let's see. 7.35 to 7.45 normal, mababa to, so meaning acid. Whatever happens, this is acidosis. The next thing is what caused its acidity. 32, mababa, meaning alka. 20, mababa, meaning acid. Ito ang nag-cause, therefore, it's metabolic acidosis. Meron ba compensation? Yes. But is the compensation enough to make it normal? No. So it's partially compensated. Metabolic acidosis. Lagi lumilipat. Okay. So that is that. Okay. Let's have another. Okay. What about this one? pH is 7.31. PCO2 is it's 14.8. PHCO3 is 20.
Respiratory acidosis po.
Respiratory.
Respiratory acidosis.
Ano compensation?
Partially compensated
Partially
po.
compensated.
Partially compensated respiratory acidosis.
So sabi nila, partially compensated respiratory acidosis. Sino nagsasabi ng ibang sagot? Any other answers? Do you agree with this? Lahat kayo partially compensated respiratory acid?
Metabolic po.
Okay, sige. What's your answer?
Partially compensated metabolic acidosis.
Okay. Sino may iba pang sagot? Okay, so let's answer this one. So this PCR acid is wrong and partially compensated metab acid is also wrong. Okay, so why? Let's look at the value. pH is 7.31. Alam mo mababa yon, meaning acid. So whatever happens, this is acidosis. Next, 48, mataas kasi 35 to 45 ang normal, acid yon. Okay? 20, mababa, acid yon. Okay. So the next question you have to ask yourself is what caused the acidity of your pH? So, syempre, titignan mo, alin ba yung acid? Dalawa, di ba? So, hindi mo pwede masabi na nag-compensate yung isa kasi pareho silang acidic. So, ang tawag po dito ay mixed acidosis. Do you get it? So, it's a mixed respi and metabolic acidosis. Kasi they are both acidic. So, they both contributed to the acidity of your pH. Walang nag-compensate. Yan. Okay na? Gets? Hello?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay. Let's have... oh, this. Ayan. So funny. Okay. So let's have another. Okay. pH is 7.44. PCO2 is 33. PHCO3 is 20.
Respiratory alkalosis po.
Compensation?
Partially compensated po.
Partially po. Partially compensated.
Ana?
Fully compensated po.
I mean, fully
Fully
compensated
po,
po.
ma'am. Wala fully. Kasi
Okay.
PH.
Okay. So, okay, malilito doon. 7.44 is normal range. Pero, it's higher than 7.4. So, we say ALCA. So, 33, mababa alka. 20, mababa acid. So, what caused the alkalinity? It's PCO2. So, it's respi, alka, and it's compensated? Yes, kasi naging acid yung isa, tas na-normalize pa yung pH, so fully compensated. Yan. Okay. Let's have a last one. Last na. PHCO3. 7.36. PZO2 is 38. PaCO3 is 26.
Normal po, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Magugulat na lang ako baka may nag-fully compensated dyan. Ah. So, 7.36 is normal. 35 to 45, normal. 22 to 26, normal. So, ang sagot siya, exam, normal. Ayan. Baka may mag-invento dyan. Ah. Okay. So, that is now your super duper easy ABG interpretation. Okay. Do you get it? Got it? Got it?
Yes po,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes.
Yes po.
Okay, so now that you get it, so you have your quiz. Yes. Okay, so your quiz for burns will be on your Moodle. So I think it'll be opened at 9:30, so you still have time to review some of the concepts. Remember your TBSA. Okay, maganda open notes siya. Open ang notes nyo. So you can just open your notes and look it up. So my computation, so prepare your calculator. Okay, so that's the end of the class. I hope that you like understood that. So
Ma'am,
let me just yes.
Ma'am,
lang po.
may
Okay.
tanong lang po ako.
May
Ma'am,
bayad.
kunya